Hi everyone, this is Stephanie from Hightower Stitching with today's video. It's a broken 9-patch on point, a 15.5 inch block, and 12 blocks are used for a quilt. And the source is the American Patchwork magazine, June 2022, page 33. And I could not find how to get back copies, so I will try and tell you everything that you need to know to make this successful. And the neat thing about this one is, I'm always saying, open your seams so it'll lay flatter and all this. And that's the way I do. Well, the trick to this one was, the nice thing to this one was there's no opening seams. It's pressed to the right, pressed to the left, and that's the end of that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at choosing some fabrics, how I chose mine, preparing your patches, and then sewing the patches. So I hope you enjoy. Well, I hope you can see this 15.5 inch square. I have moved my camera back as far as I could to get a good view of because I'm a one-person business here. And you can see my 9-patch, and then you can see that each of those boxes is divided. It's got a break in it. And it's so neat. When I looked at it, and at first I thought, gosh, that looks like a lot of work. And it is so easy, and it is so pretty. And then the other thing that we're going to look at, you've got the 9-patch with the colors in the middle. You've got the blue, the pink, and the white. But then look at the interesting corners, and we're going to talk about those. And then we're going to look at putting a border on it. So let's start. And I tell you what I did. I always make one block just to see if I like what it is we're working on. So I went in and I picked a color that I really liked. And it looks like stars in it, but it's little flowers. But because they're light and dark. So I said, okay, that's going to be my main color. And then I know that for my sashing, I'm going to need another color. And they stayed in the same family. So I did that. I said, well, do I have a blue that would go with that? And so and I might pick something else later when I did my quilt. But right now that looked good. And I said, now I need that little pop of color. And I looked around and I found this pink fabric. And I said, that's going to be my pop of color in there. And then my background is it's a little bit of an off-white. But it goes well. It's just a wad of it there. And that is all I needed to get started with this project. And how I've broken up the sections is with the center 9-patch that goes together to make that window. And then the little pink corner pieces, all of those are going to be in part A. And then part B is going to be the sashing that goes when we get finished with the big block. So first thing you would need to do the part A block is these are the 1.5 inch squares. You need 4 of those. Those are going to be those little points of interest in the window. You're going to need 1.5 by 3.5, 12 of those of your white color. And those are going to be the posts that go in between your, like in mine, it was my blue sections. My blue blocks, I needed 3.5 inch squares, which is a nice size. And you need 9 of those because it's a 9-patch. And once we get that finished, we're going to come and we're going to put corners on that 9-patch section. And that is made out of a 9-inch square. And you need 2 of those because you've got 4 corners. You're going to neatly, you can either fold it and press it and then cut it, or you can just lay your ruler on there and cut diagonally, and you'll have your 4 corners. That comes on last on this section, all right? Then the last section for that A is to go up there and fix those cute corners that have the pink in it, which is my color. And then it's got some more triangles. You'll need you'll need 4 2.5 squares. And then you're going to cut those diagonally because we got 4 corners. This is really a fun kind of thing when you get it. And it's interesting how it goes up on the corners. So that takes care of that center section. And then while I'm talking, I want to do the sashing. And my sashing right now is the blue. And so between each of your blocks, you'll have 3 1/4 by 13 inch. And then you will have, at the end of each one of those, there's another piece that's added to that to make the full sashing. And it's 3 1/4 by 2 inches. And it looks, when you get it, you're going to have it like this. And then, when you're doing your up and down rows, you're just going to have the blue and the white going together. But then when you get ready to put your rows together, you're going to have a piece that looks like, there's my white, my blue, my white. I'm going across now, and there's going to be a post that goes right between, and you'll see it when we look at the block again. And those are made out of 3 1/4 inch squares. And you would need how many you need, how many blocks that you do in your quilt. And that gives us the end of that part about our patches. So let's take one more look at this block before we start to sew. You can see your 9 patches. You can see your little accent points that are in the middle. That was that part we're going to do first. Then we're going to add on these, very carefully, these bias triangles on the outside edge. And I trimmed my block to 16 inches at that point to make sure. And I looked to make sure that I had 1/4 of an inch on each one of those corners also. Then the last part of this A part is to add those little corners on down there. And they give you a good idea of how to add that. But then I want you to remember that when you're doing your blocks, you're going to have that blue strip with the white pieces on it. All right. And then when you get ready to put your rows together, you're going to have your white. Now, this is what's interesting, too. I want to say this to you. And I didn't notice it at first. But this white and this pink are going to hit at the same place. And when you look at it, even on this side, you'll say, well, that's not going to fit. But when you pin it in place, and that's got a little give, then it fits perfectly, well, almost perfectly, but you can see it. All right, and then remember I said there was that other blue that we needed. And so this square right here is that blue that fills that hole in. There would be a hole there if we didn't put something in. And it's part of our part that goes straight across. So I hope that brings you back down to where we are on that. And we're going to move to the sewing machine. So now I'm going to look at the first row that goes across. And I'm going to have 3 of these because this will make my 9 patch. And I have the blue, the white post, the blue, the white post, and the blue. Sewn this one together. And remember, the thing that I liked about this was I found something that I didn't care that we didn't open the seams. And so when I turn it over, you can see that the white is flat, which meant that the blues were ironed away from the center. So then I'm going to take, and you can do these kind of fun with with some chain stitching, if you're doing more than, when you get ready to do more than one, so you just set the pieces. Now these pieces are kind of small, and here again, this fabric is pretty soft, so I don't think I'm gonna, I haven't had any slipping, so I'm gonna take and put my thread catcher in there. Now this one, I would suggest you use that because the rugs are so short. Okay, so I've got that one. And this is going to be short because I'm only doing the last row right now. And you can see that I have the two of those, and I'm just going to clip it off. And I'm going to put my other one on. Just lay it on top. If you need a pin, like I said, pin, we're going to seam that together. And now I've got 4 blocks. Now, see, no matter how much you get everything ready, all right, so that was just my spare. I don't even need him. But you can see that I've got this going, and to make it turn out, I need to put the white next to the blue. And put that in there. All right, 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch. This is pretty precise, so try and stick with that idea. And then remember that on this part, the blue goes out. These are going to go, so I'm going to press this real quick because we're probably going to use it. This is really fun, and I thought about all the fun colors and fun you could have picking your colors, because I was even thinking about putting different colors in each block. So now I've got all 3 of mine done, plus the little extra box. And I'm going to take and work on my little accent points, which there again, we're using those same whites. And I've got my little points already cut. I'm going to take and if you're, depending how many blocks you're doing at one time, there again, it's an easy thing to chain stitch. So that wouldn't be doing that all the time. Okay. I am carefully. Now this one you probably really do need that thread catcher because it's so short. And by the time you got it really going to sewing, you would have gnarled up at the very beginning. That's a good sewing word, isn't it? Gnarled it up. And it doesn't look pretty when you take and try and straighten it out. So you almost have to cut another replacement. Okay, now the blues folded out. So these are going to go in. And you press them, and you can finger press them, and then you're ready to go. And so, with the magic of having done some already, I have set my pinks in place to fit right in that other band. And then I've pinned them. And you can pin the one side up and down, because that's where you're going to come to, or you can take and set your pins diagonally to take out as you go. So let's see how I did on this one. Did a good job of not putting those pins in my mouth. Somebody used to laugh at me They said, one of these days you're going to swallow one of those pins. Well, let me tell you, these are such long ones. I haven't really had an issue with that yet. Okay, so we've got that one on. And, oh gosh, did I get lucky? Because these lock. All of those were exactly right. And the way this one irons is going to be, it wants it to go outward again. But for some reason, this seems like it wants to go down. So you could try the way yours feels like it wants to go and then do it. And then I'd take and I'd add the other end, other piece, and it would be the same thing. I'm going to lock those two together. Oh, let's say that you didn't iron them so that they'll lock. Well, then just take and press one to the right and one to the left. You do your own fixing and then pin it. The pinning helps it, and then check that you're locking like in this one, I'm locking my pink and my blue next to each other. And when I get that all the way in there, then I'm ready to go. And I'm going to stitch it again. I'm going to add the next pink piece to it. Look how that's going. And it's really fun. The one they had done was done with red, whites, and blues. And you can either sew this to the last strip first, or you can just sew it to that block and keep going. There's no magic rule to that one until you get your block all the way completed. And you've got it looking like that. And I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and add on one of the white pieces. Okay, I don't have the box finished, but I do have a side that's got the 3 boxes on it. And that's where our large triangular pieces are going to go. The first thing I'm going to do is just finger press so I know where the center of that one is. And then I'm going to finger press that box on that row. And I'm going to slide this on there and pin it. And you got to be gentle with this because the way this is now, the way this is cut, that's the bias. And it will stretch. And you'll go, oh, I got too big of a triangle. Well, no, not really. You've just stretched it so that it fits. And we're going to take and stitch down that side. And you can go ahead and cut off those little puppy ears. And that'll... Now we got that, and I'm going to, we should be just pretty right on it, because if you actually turn it and look at it, and if I was to fold this in half down here, it looks like the point would be right down there. So, and that, if you're real careful because of that bias edge, then that'll be all right. Then this one comes and it goes back gently, and then just press on it to get it to lay. Don't start doing a lot of that ironing. And you're going to repeat that on the other 4 sides. And you're going to look and see that you have 1/4 of an inch here. Well, this is when I did one of my first sections of looking at the block, because I wanted to make sure I didn't have more than that, because I want my row of stitching to hit right across there when I go. And so that right now, this would be like a 16-inch block. And when we get the other parts on there, then it'll go down to 15.5. So now, before I forget, I want to tell you, we're going to do the other part of A, which is the little corners. And you might not want to put them on there, but I think it finishes the quilt. And it's really not that difficult. You're going to come out, it's 3 1/4, and I picked up a pen, so I'm going to put a mark at 3 1/4, and then I'm going to go to the other part of the corner, and I'm going to put 3 1/4, because what we're going to do is when we get this piece finished, this is where we're going to go next, the last part of A, then we're going to trim this off to 1/4 from that corner down there going down. And I have a ruler I can see through, which is really nice. And I can tell when this is not see-through, but I can set it on there, and I can see where my 1/4 is and what extra that I have. And it's going to go, when I get it trimmed up nice and pretty, then where this 1/4 of an inch is, and this 1/4, they are going to meet on that 3 1/4 that you did, and 3 1/4. And the part that's important is that your mark that goes across ends up on that mark right there. And that'll also make it go through, we've talked about these a lot before, where these points came together right here. That's the sweet spot. And then we want to be able to sew all the way across there through that spot and over here, so that when we open up the block, like on the first block that I had, the sample, then this is very close to where it was. And here I can even see my marks right now because I haven't covered them up. But you can see also that it went right through where those two parts had intersected. And this one, I wasn't quite as pleased with this one, but it's going to work great. And then this one, and I figure too that after I've done a couple of them, because this last one really turned out nicely, and then I was ready to match my white, my sashing up to the outside. And we've sort of talked about that a lot because I want you to keep it in mind. And so the sashing is going to go on. The sashing only went on the inside pieces, and when they finished, they put 3 2-inch borders on it, like a red and a white and a blue, and it was 2 inches. So you don't need the sashing pieces out here, unless that's something else that you want to do a little different. And then when I got my sashing, like we talked about, I'd match my pink. I'd go all the way across. And what I usually will do with this is I'll pin that down first. Then I'll come over and I'll pin the other one. And this one's really having to stretch. I don't know what that is. Maybe looks like I might have made my seam too big on one end. I just only have to take that out and make it smaller. But then pin on this other side, and then pin your block, and then you're ready to sew it. And when you get done, you're going to have something you're really going to be proud of, and something that's really a lot of fun to do. I mean, this is just like therapy, sitting here and just stitching those together and putting the blocks. And you can see why this is called on point, because instead of putting the blocks in rows that go that way, they set the blocks so that you're looking at it, and it's such an interesting way to look at it. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll try it because it's a broken 9 patch on point, And it makes you a 15.5-inch block. And with just 12 blocks, you can make a nice size quilt. I think it takes 5 yards of backing if you do the whole quilt. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe. Doesn't cost anything, because I'd like to know you were here. Thank you.